Ambassador Krelthar stood before the Galactic Council, his long fingers pressed together in the traditional gesture of acceptance. The chamber was vast, carved from a single piece of crystalline rock that had taken his ancestors 3,000 years to shape. Around him sat representatives from 40 different species, each one a master of diplomacy and peace. "I volunteer for the Earth mission," he said, his voice calm and measured. The council members looked at each other. A few nodded. Others remained still, their various forms of communication passing between them in ways only they understood. Krelthar had been a diplomat for 200 years. He had negotiated peace between the silicon-based Matharians and the carbon-based Vex. He had prevented 3 wars and established 7 new trade routes. If anyone could handle first contact with this new species called humans, it was him. The head counselor, an ancient being named Vorth, spoke with a voice like wind through hollow reeds. "The humans have achieved faster than light travel. This makes them eligible for contact. What do we know of them?" A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed a small, blue and green planet orbiting a yellow star. The planet looked peaceful from space, with white clouds swirling across its surface. "This is Earth," said the briefing officer, a small gray creature with large eyes. "The humans evolved there approximately 200,000 years ago. They achieved Industrial Revolution 300 years ago. They reached their moon 60 years ago. They achieved FTL travel last month." Krelthar felt his eyebrows rise. 60 years from moon landing to FTL travel? That was remarkably fast. His own people had taken 400 years to make that same leap, but perhaps the humans were simply lucky, or had found some shortcut in the physics. "Population?" asked another counselor. "Approximately 7 billion individuals," the briefing officer replied. The chamber fell silent. Krelthar felt his heart skip a beat. 7 billion. His homeworld had 400 million Centaurians, and they were considered one of the larger populations in the council. 7 billion seemed impossible. "That must be an error," Vorth said quietly. "We have confirmed it multiple times," the briefing officer said. "Their planet is densely populated." Krelthar made a note in his personal datapad. High population density often meant efficient resource management or advanced agriculture. That was a good sign. It meant the humans could organize themselves well. "What of their culture?" he asked. "They are diverse," the briefing officer continued. "Multiple languages, multiple governments, multiple belief systems. They have only recently begun to unify their planet under a single organization called the United Nations. So they are still divided," Vorth observed. "That is typical for a young species. They will need guidance to achieve true unity," Krelthar nodded. This was familiar territory. Many species went through this phase. His own people had been divided into 12 separate nations before they achieved global peace and began reaching for the stars. The humans would need mentorship, gentle guidance to help them overcome their divisions and join the galactic community. "I will go alone," Krelthar said. "A single ambassador is less threatening than a delegation. I will spend 1 week on their planet, learn their ways, and return with a recommendation." The council agreed. Preparations began immediately. Krelthar was given a small, fast ship equipped with translation technology and medical supplies. He packed light, bringing only his diplomatic robes and his data recording equipment. He had done this before. First contact was always delicate, but he was confident in his abilities. The journey to Earth took 3 days. Krelthar spent the time reviewing what little information they had about humans. They were bipedal. Like him, they breathed oxygen. They had 2 eyes, 1 nose, 1 mouth. Their skin came in various shades of brown, pink, and tan. They seemed unremarkable in most ways. When his ship entered the solar system, he was immediately contacted by a human vessel. The translation software took a moment to calibrate. Then a voice came through his speakers. "Unknown vessel. This is Commander Jake Morrison of the human ship Endeavor. Please, identify yourself. Krelthar activated his communication system. Greetings, Commander Morrison. I am Ambassador Krelthar of the Centaurian Collective and representative of the Galactic Council. I come in peace to establish first contact with your species. There was a pause. Then the human voice came back, and Krelthar could hear excitement in it. Ambassador, this is incredible. We've been hoping for contact. We'd be honored to host you. Would you be willing to visit Earth? That is precisely why I have come. Krelthar replied. Outstanding. We'll escort you to our planet. My government has prepared a welcome for you. The Endeavor appeared on his view screen. It was a bulky ship, clearly built for function rather than beauty. Its hull was marked with scratches and scorch marks. Krelthar noted this. The humans had been testing their ship, pushing it to its limits. That showed good scientific method. As they approached Earth, Krelthar looked at the planet more closely. From orbit, he could see vast cities glowing on the night side. During the day, he saw large areas of cultivated land, massive structures, and networks of roads connecting everything. The planet was heavily developed. 7 billion individuals. He was beginning to believe it. 7 billion individuals. 7 billion individuals. Commander Morrison guided him to a landing site in a place called New York City. As Krelthar's ship descended, he saw buildings rising high into the sky. Thousands of vehicles moved through the streets. The city sprawled in all directions, far larger than any city on his homeworld. When he landed, a delegation was waiting for him. 2 humans stood at the front of the group. One was a female with dark hair pulled back from her face. She wore simple clothing and carried a data pad. The other was a male in a military uniform, standing straight and alert. Krelthar stepped out of his ship and approached them. He was taller than they were, which was normal. Most council species were larger than what he was seeing. The female smiled and extended her hand. Welcome to Earth, Ambassador. I'm Dr. Lisa Campbell, anthropologist. I'll be one of your guides during your stay. Krelthar had studied human gestures. He took her hand and shook it gently. Her grip was firm, stronger than he expected. And I'm Captain Ben Hayes, the male said, also shaking his hand with that same surprising firmness. I'll be your security liaison and co-guide. I am honored to meet you both, Krelthar said. We've prepared accommodations for you, Lisa said. We thought we'd start with a tour of the city, then move on to cultural sites, technology centers, and whatever else interests you. We want you to see the best of humanity. Krelthar looked around at the tall buildings, the busy streets, the thousands of humans moving about their lives. Everything seemed normal. Primitive by council standards, but normal. These were just another species taking their first steps into the larger galaxy. I look forward to learning about your people, he said. He had no idea that everything he thought he knew was about to change. The first 2 days on Earth were pleasant enough. Lisa and Ben took Krelthar to museums filled with human art. He saw paintings that showed skill and creativity. He listened to music, performed by an orchestra, the sounds blending together in ways that were genuinely beautiful. The humans were proud of their culture, and Krelthar could appreciate why. They showed him technology centers where humans were developing new computers and medical equipment. The technology was crude compared to council standards, but it was functional. The humans were enthusiastic about their progress, and Krelthar found their excitement charming in a way. They reminded him of children showing off their first drawings. On the 3rd day, they took him to dinner at a restaurant overlooking the city. The lights of New York spread out below them, like stars brought down to Earth. Lisa ordered food for him that she thought he could eat, checking carefully against his dietary requirements. She was thoughtful and intelligent. Tell me about your history, Krelthar said as they ate. How did your species come to develop space travel? Lisa smiled and pulled up a timeline on her data pad. Well, We had our first powered flight in 1903. That was an aircraft that flew through the air, using an engine. Then we reached space in 1961. We landed on our moon in 1969, and we achieved FTL travel last month. Krelthar paused with his utensil halfway to his mouth. You went from first flight to faster-than-light travel in 120 years. Give or take, Lisa said cheerfully. Once we figure out something is possible, we tend to move pretty fast. Ben laughed at Krelthar's expression. What's wrong, Ambassador? My people took over 800 years to make that same journey, Krelthar said slowly. Most council species took similar amounts of time. How did you progress so quickly? Lisa shrugged. Competition, I guess. Different nations wanted to be first. It pushed us to innovate faster. Plus, we had 2 world wars that accelerated technological development. World wars? Krelthar set down his utensil. Wars involving your entire world? Well, most of it, Ben said. The second one had over 60 countries involved. But that was a long time ago. We've been mostly peaceful since then. Krelthar made notes on his pad. Wars that covered entire continents, 60 nations fighting at once. And they called that a long time ago. But it had only been 80 years. His people had not had a war in 3,000 years. How many casualties? He asked quietly. In World War II? About 70 to 80 million dead, Lisa said, her voice becoming more somber. It was terrible. But we learned from it. That's why we formed the United Nations. To prevent it from happening again. Krelthar's hands were shaking. He set his pad down carefully. 70 million dead. His entire planet only had 400 million people. The humans had killed more of their own kind in 6 years than his entire species population. And they had survived it. Moved past it. We're still here. Thriving. Are you all right? Lisa asked, concern in her voice. Yes, Krelthar lied. Please continue. The next day, Ben took him to a military base. Krelthar had not wanted to see military facilities, but Ben had insisted it was part of understanding human society. They arrived at a large compound where hundreds of young humans were training. Krelthar watched from a safe distance as the soldiers ran through exercises. They moved fast. Faster than he had expected. They carried heavy packs and weapons while running for miles. They climbed over walls and crawled under barriers. They practiced hand-to-hand combat with an intensity that made Krelthar's skin prickle. This is just basic training, Ben said proudly. Every soldier goes through this. It takes about 3 months. 3 months? Krelthar watched a young female soldier scale a wall twice her height. How long does your species train for military service? Depends on the role, Ben said. Basic is 3 months. Specialized training can take years. Our special forces go through some of the most intense training programs in the world. And how many individuals serve in your military? Globally? About 25 million active personnel, with another 30 million in reserve. Krelthar felt dizzy. 25 million active soldiers. The entire Centaurian Defense Force was 50,000 individuals, and they were only trained in defensive tactics. They had not fought a real war in recorded history. What do you need so many soldiers for? He asked. Ben looked at him with surprise. Defense, peacekeeping, disaster response. We need to be ready for anything. Ready for war, Krelthar said. Ready for anything. Ben repeated firmly. We hope for peace, Ambassador. But we prepare for the worst. That's how we've survived this long. That night, Krelthar lay in his quarters unable to sleep. He kept thinking about the soldiers, about their speed and aggression, about the casual way Lisa had mentioned 70 million dead. He kept thinking about 25 million active military personnel, more than his entire species would have even if every single Centaurian joined the defense force. He thought about the timeline. Flight to FTL in 120 years. His people had been peaceful philosophers, who slowly developed technology over thousands of years. The humans had rushed forward, driven by competition and war, achieving in decades what took others centuries. When he finally slept, he dreamed of running. In his dream, he was being chased by something fast and relentless. Every time he thought he had escaped, it appeared again, tireless and determined. He woke up breathing hard, his heart's racing. On the 5th day, Lisa took him to see human entertainment. They watched a movie together. Something Lisa said was very popular. It was about humans fighting an alien invasion. Krelthar watched as the fictional humans refused to surrender, even when facing superior technology. They fought back with creativity and determination. They won through sacrifice and courage. "Is this how your people see yourselves?" he asked when the movie ended. Lisa thought about it. "I guess so. We like to think we're survivors, that we can overcome anything if we try hard enough. And if you cannot overcome it, then we try harder," she said simply. They walked through a park afterward. Children played on equipment designed to help them climb and jump and test their physical limits. A small boy fell from a climbing structure and scraped his knee. He cried for a moment, then got up and tried again. "Your children train for physical challenges from a young age," Krelthar observed. "We call it playing," Lisa said with a smile. "But yes, I suppose they're learning to be tough, learning that failing isn't the end. You get back up and try again." Krelthar watched the children. On his world, young Centaurians were kept safe, protected from anything that might hurt them. They learned in controlled environments, where failure meant nothing more than trying a simulation again. These human children were learning through real pain, real failure. That evening, Ben introduced him to a man named Dan Cooper, a military veteran who had served in several conflicts. Dan was older, with gray in his hair and scars on his hands. He spoke calmly about his experiences in war, about losing friends, about difficult decisions. "Why do humans fight so much?" Krelthar asked him. Dan was quiet for a moment. "That's a good question, Ambassador. I think it's because we're good at it. And sometimes, fighting is necessary to protect people who can't protect themselves. I don't like war. Nobody who's really been in one does. But I'd rather be capable of fighting and not need to, than need to fight and not be capable." "You are prepared for violence," Krelthar said. "We're prepared for anything," Dan replied, echoing Ben's words. "That's what being human means. We hope for the best, but we're ready for the worst." Krelthar returned to his quarters with his mind spinning. Something was wrong. The pieces were not fitting together the way they should. The humans seemed friendly and peaceful, but they were also prepared for war in ways that shocked him. They had killed millions of their own kind and survived. They trained their soldiers to be aggressive and fast. They taught their children that pain was just part of learning. He was beginning to suspect that the pleasant, peaceful humans showing him their culture were only one side of the species, and he was starting to fear what the other side might look like. On the 6th day, Lisa took Krelthar to a place called the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History. It was enormous, filled with displays about Earth's past and the creatures that had lived there. Lisa seemed excited to show him the evolution section. "This is where we explain how humans developed," she said, leading him through hallways lined with displays. Krelthar stopped at a display showing early human ancestors. The information described how humans evolved to be persistence hunters. They would chase prey animals for hours, sometimes days, following them relentlessly until the animals collapsed from exhaustion. Then, the humans would kill them. "You hunted by chasing your prey until it died from tiredness?" Krelthar asked. "Pretty much," Lisa said. "We're not the fastest runners, but we can run for a very long time. We sweat to cool down, so we don't overheat like other animals. We can keep going when other creatures have to stop and rest." Krelthar felt cold. He looked at the display again. Humans were endurance hunters. They did not give up. They did not stop. They simply kept coming until their prey had nothing left. He moved to another display and stopped suddenly. It showed a comparison of different species' eyes. Predator species had eyes facing forward, giving them depth perception to hunt. Prey species had eyes on the sides of their heads, giving them wide vision to watch for danger. Human eyes faced forward. Krelthar's eyes were on the sides of his head. He was prey evolved. His people had evolved from herd animals that ate plants and ran from predators. Humans had evolved from predators. Ambassador? Lisa touched his arm gently. Are you okay? You look pale. I am fine, he said. But his voice was weak. Please, continue the tour. They moved through more exhibits. Lisa showed him dinosaurs, massive creatures that had dominated Earth for millions of years. Then she showed him the meteor strike that had killed them all. 65 million years ago, a space rock hit Earth, she explained. It killed about 75% of all life on the planet. But some creatures survived. Small mammals. Eventually, they evolved into us. Your planet has tried to kill you, Krelthar said slowly. Oh, many times. Lisa laughed. We've had 5 major extinction events. Ice ages, supervolcano eruptions, climate changes. But life finds a way. We find a way. After the museum, Lisa took him to a hospital. She wanted him to see human medical capabilities. A doctor named Amy Roberts showed him around the trauma center. Krelthar watched through a window as doctors worked on patients who had been in accidents or suffered injuries. That patient there, doctor, Roberts said, pointing to a man in one of the rooms. His name is Greg Walker. He was in a car accident yesterday. 3 broken ribs, punctured lung, fractured skull, broken leg. Krelthar stared. He is still alive? Of course, Dr. Roberts said, looking confused. We've stabilized him. He'll need surgery and months of recovery, but he should be fine. Those injuries would kill a Centaurian within hours, Krelthar said quietly. Our bodies cannot survive such trauma. Dr. Roberts looked surprised. Really? Humans are pretty tough. We evolved to take damage and keep going. Our bones are dense. Our organs can function even when damaged. We heal from almost anything if we get treatment fast enough. How much damage can a human survive? Well, people have survived falls from airplanes. We've survived being struck by lightning, lost limbs, severe burns. As long as the brain and heart keep working, we can usually save them. And even when the heart stops, we can sometimes restart it. Krelthar felt sick. The humans were not just persistent hunters. They were incredibly difficult to kill. Their bodies were built to absorb damage that would destroy any council species. They were predators from a death world, and their evolution had made them into survivors. That evening, Jake Morrison invited Krelthar to dinner with his family. Krelthar almost declined, but he knew refusing would be rude. He needed to maintain diplomatic relations even as his fear grew. Jake's home was comfortable and warm. His wife, Helen, welcomed Krelthar kindly. Their daughter Emma was 8 years old, with bright eyes and endless questions. Their son Chris was 16, tall and strong. Are you really from another planet? Emma asked, bouncing in her seat. I am, Krelthar said, trying to smile. That's so cool. I want to be an astronaut when I grow up. I want to visit other planets and meet aliens like you. Space travel is dangerous, Krelthar said. I know, Emma said cheerfully. But it'll be worth it. I want to see the galaxy, Chris spoke up. I'm joining the Marines after high school. Then maybe I'll become a pilot. Dad says the military is starting a space division. Krelthar looked at Jake. You approve of your children taking such risks? Jake looked surprised by the question. They're following their dreams. Emma wants to explore. Chris wants to serve and protect. I'm proud of them both. On my world, we encourage our children to choose safe professions, Krelthar said. We protect them from danger. We protect our kids too, Helen said. But we also teach them to be brave, to take risks when it matters. How else will they grow? After dinner, Krelthar returned to his quarters and pulled up Earth's history on his datapad. He read through it carefully, and with each page, his fear grew deeper. The Black Death had killed a third of Europe's population in the 1300s. They rebuilt. The Mongol invasions killed millions across Asia. They survived. 2 world wars killed over 90 million combined. They recovered and reached the moon within decades. The Spanish flu pandemic killed 50 million. Natural disasters, earthquakes, tsunamis, hurricanes, each one killed thousands. The humans rebuilt every time. They had survived everything their deadly planet had thrown at them. They had survived diseases that would wipe out any council species. They had survived wars that would destroy civilizations. They had survived extinction events and ice ages and volcanic eruptions. And they had not just survived. They had thrived. Krelthar pulled up information about Earth itself. The gravity was higher than most inhabited planets. The atmosphere had higher oxygen content, making fires burn hotter. The weather was violent, with storms that could flatten entire cities. The planet had predators that could kill humans easily, yet humans had hunted most of them to extinction or pushed them into small, protected areas. Earth was a death world. A planet so hostile that most council species would not survive there for a week without advanced technology. And humans had evolved there. They had conquered it. He thought about the children he had seen playing roughly in the park. The soldiers training with such intensity. The patient who had survived injuries that would kill any Centaurian. The casual way Lisa had mentioned 70 million dead, as if it was just another historical fact. Humans were apex predators from a death world. They were persistence hunters who never gave up. They were survivors who could withstand injuries that would kill other species. They had conquered their planet, and now they were reaching for the stars. And there were 7 billion of them. Krelthar sat in his quarters, trembling. He had one more day on Earth, one more day to try to understand these creatures. He was beginning to realize that the pleasant, friendly humans he had met were not hiding something dark. They were simply showing him their best side. But he had seen enough to know their capabilities. He had seen what they could survive. What they had survived. What they were capable of doing. The Galactic Council had sent him to evaluate whether humanity was ready to join the galaxy. But Krelthar was starting to think the real question was different. The real question was whether the galaxy was ready for humanity. He did not sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw forward-facing predator eyes. He saw children learning to endure pain. He saw soldiers moving with deadly purpose. He saw a species that had survived everything, that had been forged in fire and ice and war, and tomorrow was his last day on Earth. Krelthar woke on his 7th and final day on Earth, feeling exhausted. His hands shook as he prepared for the day. Lisa had planned a full schedule, wanting to show him as much as possible before he left. He almost asked to cancel, to simply return to his ship and leave. But he was a diplomat. He had a duty to complete his mission. Lisa arrived early, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She offered one to Krelthar, but he declined. His system could not process the caffeine. "I thought we'd visit a library this morning," she said. "Then maybe a school. I want you to see how we educate our children. After that, we'll visit some technology companies and finish at the United Nations building." Krelthar nodded. He followed her to a large public library in Manhattan. The building was beautiful, with high ceilings and thousands of books lining the walls. People of all ages moved through the space quietly, reading and studying. Lisa led him to the children's section. Bright colors decorated the walls. Small chairs and tables were arranged in groups. Shelves held books with colorful covers. Krelthar picked one up randomly. It was a fairy tale about a small human child who outsmarted a giant using cleverness and tricks. He picked up another. This one was about children lost in the woods who survived by being smart and brave. Another was about a boy who refused to grow up and had adventures fighting pirates. Another was about children finding a magical land and fighting an evil witch. Your stories for children are about fighting and surviving, he said slowly. Lisa looked at the books in his hands and smiled. I guess they are. We like stories about overcoming challenges, about being brave when things are scary. Those stories teach kids that they can face difficulties and win. On my world, children's stories are about cooperation and peace, Krelthar said. About working together and avoiding conflict. We have those too, Lisa said. But we also teach kids that sometimes you have to stand up and fight for what's right. That sometimes you're going to face scary things, and you need to be brave. Krelthar set the books down carefully. Even the human children were being trained to be fighters. Not with weapons, but with ideas. With stories that taught them to never give up, to face danger, to overcome impossible odds. They left the library and walked through a nearby park. It was a beautiful spring morning. Families were out enjoying the weather. Krelthar watched the children playing. 2 boys, maybe 8 years old, were wrestling in the grass. They were laughing, but the wrestling was rough. They grabbed and pushed and pulled at each other with surprising strength. On Centaurus, children that age would be carefully supervised. Any physical contact that rough would be stopped immediately. The risk of injury was too high, but here, the parents sat nearby, watching calmly. The boys' rough play was considered normal. A girl was climbing on metal bars, swinging from one to another. She missed a bar and fell, landing hard on the rubber surface below. She cried out and sat there for a moment, tears in her eyes. Her father came over and checked on her. "You okay, sweetie?" he asked. The girl nodded, wiping her eyes. Then she stood up and climbed back onto the bars, trying the same move again. "They learn young," Krelthar said quietly. "Learn what?" Lisa asked. "That pain is temporary. That failure is not final. That you try again." Lisa looked at the children and nodded. "I never thought about it that way. But yes, that's exactly what they're learning." In the afternoon, Ben joined them. He wanted to take Krelthar to meet another veteran. This one was named Dan Cooper, an older man with gray hair and kind eyes. Dan had served in 3 different conflicts, over 20 years of military service. He lived in a small apartment, with pictures of his unit on the walls. They sat and talked for an hour. Dan spoke matter-of-factly about combat, about losing friends, about the hard decisions soldiers had to make. He did not glorify war. He spoke about it like a difficult job that had to be done. "Do you regret your service?" Krelthar asked. Dan thought about it. "No. I regret that war was necessary. I regret the friends I lost. But I don't regret serving. Someone has to stand between peace and chaos. Someone has to be willing to fight so others don't have to." "Your people have always fought," Krelthar said. It was not a question. "Yes," Dan admitted. "Humans have been fighting since the beginning. We fought each other, fought predators, fought the planet itself. Fighting is part of who we are, but so is protecting each other. We're good at violence, Ambassador, but we're also good at mercy. We're capable of terrible things, but we're also capable of incredible kindness." "Which one are you truly?" Krelthar asked. Dan smiled sadly. "Both. We're both. That's what makes us human." That evening, Lisa took him to a high school where a science fair was happening. Teenagers had set up projects showing their experiments and ideas. Krelthar walked through the displays, listening to young humans explain their work. One girl had designed a water purification system for disaster zones. A boy had created a program to help identify diseases faster. Another group had built a small robot that could navigate rough terrain. The projects were clever and showed real understanding of complex problems. "These are children?" Krelthar asked. "Teenagers," Lisa corrected. "They're 15 to 18 years old. Smart kids who are interested in science. They are already solving real problems. That's what we encourage them to do," Lisa said. "We teach them that they can make a difference, that they can change the world. Krelthar looked at the young humans. They were so confident, so sure that they could solve any problem they encountered. They had the same determination he had seen in the adults, the same refusal to accept that something was impossible. As they walked back to his quarters, Lisa asked him about his impressions of Earth. "Your people are remarkable," he said carefully, "but also frightening." Lisa stopped walking and looked at him with concern. "Frightening? How?" Krelthar chose his words carefully. "You are survivors. Your planet tried to kill you many times, and you refused to die. You learned to be tough because you had to be. You learned to fight because fighting meant living. You are kind and generous, but you are also capable of great violence. You are both at once." "I suppose that's true," Lisa said slowly. "Does that make us bad?" "No," Krelthar said. "It makes you dangerous. Dangerous to your enemies, but also dangerous to yourselves. I worry what will happen when your species reaches the stars. Will you bring peace? Or will you bring the violence that you learned on Earth?" Lisa was quiet for a long moment. "I think we'll bring both," she finally said. "We're not perfect. We've made terrible mistakes. But we're trying to be better. We're trying to learn from our past. Most humans want peace, Ambassador. We're tired of war. We've seen what it costs. But we're also not going to let anyone threaten us or the people we care about. We'll defend ourselves if we have to." 3. "That is what frightens me," Krelthar admitted. "Your capacity for defense is also a capacity for conquest. How do I know which one you will choose?" "You don't," Lisa said honestly. "We don't even know yet. But I can tell you this. We're reaching out our hand in friendship. We want to join the galaxy in peace. What happens next depends on how we're treated. If we're welcomed as friends, we'll be the best allies you could ask for. If we're treated as enemies," she trailed off, "then you will be the worst enemies we could face," Krelthar finished. Lisa nodded. Yes. They reached his quarters in silence. Lisa said goodnight and left. Krelthar sat in the dark, thinking about everything he had seen and learned. 7 days on Earth had changed everything he thought he knew. The Galactic Council was made up of prey species, herbivores who had evolved on gentle worlds. They had achieved peace through philosophy and cooperation. They had reached the stars through curiosity and patience. They had never faced real extinction. They had never been tested the way humans had been tested. And now they were going to meet a species of apex predators from a death world. A species that numbered in the billions. A species that had survived everything. A species that was reaching for the stars with the same determination they had shown in conquering their own planet. Krelthar knew what his report would have to say, but he did not know if the council would believe him. He did not know if they could understand what he had learned. How could he explain fear to people who had never really experienced it? Tomorrow he would leave Earth. Tomorrow he would return to the council. And tomorrow he would have to find the words to explain that humanity was not a question of if they were ready for the galaxy. The question was whether the galaxy was ready for humanity. Krelthar's final morning on Earth began with a request. Lisa had asked if there was anything else he wanted to see before leaving. He had thought carefully about his answer. "I would like to see your space program," he said. "And your United Nations building." Lisa's face lit up. "Perfect. I can arrange both." They started at a facility belonging to a company called Space X. A young engineer named Kate Sullivan gave them a tour. She was energetic and passionate as she showed Krelthar the rockets and spacecraft being built. "This is our Mars transport vehicle," Kate explained, gesturing to a massive rocket. "We're planning to establish a permanent settlement on Mars within 15 years. Krelthar stared at the rocket. "Mars is a dead planet. Why would you want to settle there?" Kate looked at him as if he had asked why the sky was blue. "Because it's there. Because it's possible. Because if something happens to Earth, we need humans living somewhere else. And, honestly, because it's amazing. We're going to terraform Mars, eventually. Turn it into a second Earth. You believe you can make a dead planet livable? Not me personally. Kate laughed. That'll take generations. But yes, we believe it's possible. Humans have always changed our environment to suit us. We turned deserts into farmland. We built cities in harsh climates. Mars is just the next challenge. Krelthar watched as workers moved around the facility with purpose and confidence. They were preparing to colonize a dead world. And they believed they would succeed. Not might succeed. Would succeed. The human confidence was absolute. How many people want to go to Mars? He asked. Thousands have already applied, Kate said. They know it's dangerous. They know they might die. They're going anyway. Why would they risk death? Kate smiled. Because someone has to be first. Someone has to be brave enough to take the risk. That's how humans have always been. We go where we're not supposed to go. We do what's not supposed to be possible. After the space facility, they went to the United Nations building in New York. It was an impressive structure, and Krelthar could feel the history in it. This was where humanity attempted to govern itself. To work together despite their differences. A small assembly had been gathered for him. Representatives from various nations sat in a curved room, waiting to hear from the first alien they had ever met. Krelthar stood at a podium, looking out at the human faces watching him expectantly. People of Earth, he began. I have spent 7 days among you. I have seen your cities and your culture. I have met your people and learned your history. I return to the Galactic Council with a full report. Will the Council accept us? Asked one representative, a woman from China. Krelthar paused. This was the moment where he had to choose his words carefully. The humans were watching him, waiting. They wanted to join the galaxy. They wanted to meet other species and explore the stars. They had reached out their hands in friendship. But Krelthar had seen what they were capable of. He had seen their history written in blood and fire. He had seen their capacity for violence and survival. He had seen predators who had conquered a death world. I will recommend immediate membership, he said finally. But I will also recommend something else. I will recommend that the Council never gives humanity a reason to become our enemies. The room went silent. The representatives looked at each other, confused. Ambassador, said a man from India. Are you saying we're a threat? I am saying you are capable, Krelthar said carefully. More capable than any species the Council has encountered before. You are survivors. You are fighters. You are builders and explorers and scientists. You are kind and generous. But you are also dangerous when threatened. The Council needs to understand this. He took a breath and continued. My people evolved as prey on a gentle world. We learned peace because we had the luxury of peace. Most Council species are similar. We achieved space travel through cooperation and philosophy. We took thousands of years to reach the stars because we did not need to hurry. We had time. But you, he looked around at the assembled humans. You evolved as hunters on a world that tried to kill you constantly. You learned to fight because you had to. You achieved space travel in barely a century because you competed and pushed and refused to accept limitations. You have suffered extinctions and wars and diseases that would have destroyed any Council species. And you survived. You thrived. You are what we are not, Krelthar said quietly. And that frightens me. Not because you are evil, but because you are powerful in ways we cannot match. You are 7 billion strong. You are tough enough to survive injuries that would kill us. You are determined enough to never give up. And you are reaching for the stars with the same determination you showed in conquering your world. A representative from Brazil stood up. Ambassador Krelthar, are you saying we shouldn't be allowed to join the Council? No. Krelthar said firmly. I am saying the opposite. I am saying you must be allowed to join. Because if you are not welcomed as friends, you will reach the stars anyway. You will explore the galaxy anyway. You will grow and expand anyway. That is what humans do. You do not ask permission. You do what you believe is right, and accept the consequences. If the council rejects you, you will still reach the stars. But you will do it as outsiders, as potential enemies. And I do not want that. I do not want my people to face humanity in conflict. I have seen what you survived on your own world. I do not want to imagine what you could do to other worlds. But if we welcome you as friends, Krell said, his voice growing stronger. If we treat you with respect and honesty, if we include you in our community, then you will be the galaxy's greatest defenders. You will be the warriors we never needed before. You will be the survivors who refuse to let anything threaten those under your protection. He looked around at the silent room. You asked if the council will accept you. I will tell them they must. Not because you are harmless, but because you are powerful. And it is better to have such power as an ally than as an enemy. The representatives began talking among themselves. Krelthar could see various emotions crossing their faces. Pride, concern, confusion, understanding. Lisa stood and asked a question. Ambassador, you seem afraid of us, but you also seem to respect us. How do we prove that we'll be good members of the galactic community? Krelthar looked at her, this intelligent human, who had shown him her world with such pride and honesty. You have already proven it, he said. You reached out in peace. You showed me your best and did not hide your worst. You were honest about your history. That is all any species can do. The rest will be revealed through time and actions. The assembly ended shortly after. Krelthar said his goodbyes to Lisa and Ben. They had become something close to friends during his week on Earth. He thanked them for their honesty and hospitality. Will we see you again? Lisa asked. Perhaps, Krelthar said. If the council accepts my recommendation, there will be many exchanges between our people. You will be invited to send ambassadors to the council. We will establish embassies and trade. You will meet many species. And they'll be as scared of us as you are? Ben asked with a slight smile. Some will be, Krelthar admitted. But fear can lead to respect. Respect can lead to friendship. I hope that is what will happen. He boarded his ship and began the journey back to the council. The 3-day trip gave him time to organize his thoughts and prepare his report. He knew what he would say, but he did not know how the council would react. When he arrived at the council chambers, he was immediately brought before the assembly. All 40 species representatives were present, waiting to hear about humanity. Ambassador Krelthar, Vorth's voice echoed through the chamber. Welcome back. Please give us your report on the humans of Earth. Krelthar stood in the center of the chamber. He looked around at the familiar faces of the council members. These were peaceful species, philosophers, and scientists, beings who had achieved greatness through cooperation and patience. And he was about to tell them that they had found something different. I recommend immediate membership for humanity, he said. His voice was steady, but his hands were clasped tightly together. And I recommend that we never, under any circumstances, give them a reason to become our enemies. The chamber erupted in confusion. Council members spoke over each other, asking questions. Vorth raised a hand for silence. Explain, Vorth said simply. Krelthar took a deep breath. The humans are not like us. They evolved as apex predators on what they call a death world. Earth has higher gravity than most inhabited planets. It has violent weather and dangerous life forms. The planet has tried to exterminate all life 5 times. Yet humans survived each extinction event. He continued, his voice growing stronger. They are persistence hunters. They chase prey until it dies from exhaustion. They never give up. They never stop. This trait has followed them into every aspect of their existence. They achieve technological advancement at a rate we have never seen. They went from first flight to faster-than-light travel in 120 years. They number 7 billion individuals, more than all council species combined. Each one is capable of surviving injuries that would kill any of us. Their bodies are designed to absorb damage and continue functioning. They have a history of warfare that spans their entire existence. In one conflict alone, they killed 70 million of their own kind, and they survived it. They recovered. They reached their moon within decades after that war ended. The council chamber was completely silent now. Every being was staring at Krelthar. They train their children through pain and failure, he said quietly. They teach them stories about fighting and surviving. They prepare their young for a hostile universe. They are warriors by evolution and by culture. They are everything. We are not. Then why? Vorth asked slowly. Krelthar met the ancient being's eyes. Because they are also kind. They are also generous. They reached out in peace. They showed me their world honestly. They have the capacity for great violence, yes. But they also have the capacity for great compassion. They are survivors. But they want to use that strength to protect, not to destroy. And more importantly, Krelthar continued, they will reach the stars whether we welcome them or not. That is what humans do. They do not ask permission. They do not wait for approval. They see something they want to achieve, and they achieve it. If we reject them, they will still explore the galaxy, but they will do it as outsiders, as potential threats. But if we welcome them, his voice dropped to nearly a whisper, if we treat them as equals and friends, they will become our greatest allies. They are the warriors we have never needed. They are the survivors who will fight to protect those who cannot protect themselves. They are dangerous, yes, but they are dangerous in a way that could serve the entire galaxy. We have a choice, Krelthar said, looking around at all the council members. We can fear them and push them away, or we can accept them and guide them. We can be the reason they choose peace over war. We can be the family they decide to protect rather than conquer. Vorth was silent for a long time. Then the ancient being spoke. You believe they would conquer us if we rejected them? No, Krelthar said. I believe they would simply ignore us and do what they wanted anyway. But I believe that rejection would make them suspicious, defensive, and a defensive, isolated humanity is far more dangerous than a welcomed, included humanity. They are teaching their children to reach for the stars, Krelthar added, thinking of 8-year-old Emma with her bright eyes and boundless enthusiasm. In a generation, perhaps 2, they will not ask our permission to explore. They will simply do it. Better that they do it as our friends than as strangers. We pushed away. The council deliberated for hours. Krelthar waited outside the chamber, his heart's beating rapidly. He had done his duty. He had told them the truth. Now, it was up to them to decide. Finally, he was called back in. Vorth spoke for the council. We have voted unanimously to offer humanity immediate membership in the Galactic Council. We accept your recommendation, Ambassador Krelthar. We will welcome them as friends and equals. We will guide them as best we can, and we will never give them reason to become our enemies. Krelthar felt relief wash over him. Thank you, he said. But as he left the chamber, he could not shake one final thought. The council had made the right decision. But Krelthar had seen the humans up close. He had seen their capabilities. He had seen their determination. And he knew that the galaxy had just changed forever. Humanity had been invited in, but they would have come anyway. That was what humans did. They survived. They persisted. They achieved the impossible. The question now was not whether humans would change the galaxy. The question was how much they would change it, and whether the rest of the galaxy could keep up with a species that refused to accept limits. Krelthar thought about Dan Cooper's words. We're good at violence, but we're also good at mercy. He hoped that mercy would win. He hoped that humanity would choose to be protectors rather than conquerors. But he also knew that hope was not certainty, and that uncertainty would follow the galaxy for generations to come. The humans were coming to the stars, and the galaxy would never be the same.